All right. Good morning, everybody. This is your professor, Dr. Jace K. Austin, and welcome to week number 6. That is right, week number 6 of your 7314 class, which is your reference class. We have a few course updates this week, and then after those course updates, what I'll do is we will do a little bit of an overview on common newspaper sources within libraries. And what I'm doing, as I have mentioned before, is I do overviews. So I'm not actually training you on how to use these resources, but I am introducing you to them, letting you know that they exist, letting you know when you will probably likely use some of these resources, what some of the features are, and then I'm encouraging you to attempt to learn a bit more about these resources on your own time. So without further ado, let's first get into the course updates. For one thing, when it comes to discussions, this past week I had fewer people actually doing both the discussion post and reply than I had in the course previously, and so that kind of bothers me. Don't get lazy on me, folks. You all are overall doing a very, very good job, but there were a lot of zeros and a lot of ones that I handed out in the last discussion board post, and I don't want to have to make a habit of that. I really do want to be able to give you all full credit, but in order for me to give you all full credit, you are going to have to participate. Now, there are a few things that I want to say in regard to that. First, so here in week 6, we actually have a I'm going to show you this. Discussion 5 is due this week, week 6, October the 3rd, which is Sunday at 11:59 p.m. But after that, one thing that I do want you all to be aware of is that after this discussion for week 5, your week 6 discussion, you've actually got a little bit of a layoff here. Your week 6 discussion, and this is by design, is not due until November the 14th. Again, your week 6, not your week 6, but your discussion 6 discussion is not due until November 14th. So you have discussion 5, which is due this week. In week 6, October the 3rd is when it is due. And then after that, you do not have to do a discussion board post again until November 14th. Now, there is a reason for this. During this little bit of lull time that you're going to have, what you are encouraged to do is to be working on your semester-long project. Again, as I've told you before, I am going to be mentioning the semester-long project throughout the course, and this is a great time to be working on the semester-long project when you don't have discussions that are due. So I would encourage you all to be doing that. And plus, your next assignment is actually not even due until the end of October. So I am expecting you all to use quite a bit of this time in October to be working on that semester-long project. Again, the semester-long project is very time-consuming. I've had students tell me it took them 40 hours to complete it. So you do not want to find yourself trying to do the entire semester-long project at the end of the course. Please do not put yourself in that situation where you are trying to do something that could take 40 hours in the final 2 weeks of the course. Please do not do that. The semester-long project is designed to help you all really learn the resources, get a tour of the resources, and get some practice with them. So I would really like for you all to get on those semester-long projects and to, just to be learning. But the next thing that I will mention is that, yes, the next actual assignment is going to be due on October 31st, and that is your Wikipedia edit assignment. So if you want to, you can go ahead and get a jump on that, start thinking about what Wikipedia page you might want to edit and that sort of thing. The Wikipedia edit assignment, most of my students tell me that doesn't actually take them very long. Sometimes like just 2 or 3 days to kind of get through that and complete it. So I don't want you all to stress out about the Wikipedia edit assignment. And I will have a check-in video devoted to Wikipedia, probably either next week or definitely not next week because we're having a sync session. So probably week after next. And speaking of sync session, as I just said, there is a sync session next week. Your attendance is required. And next week's sync session, I believe, is going to be our session with about the differently able. Let me just check for a second. Give me one moment. Actually, no, I was wrong, and that's why it was good to check. Our sync session next week is going to be related to de-escalation with library patrons, and that's going to be led by former law enforcement officer and now head of security with the Mid-Continent Public Library System, Dustin Koopman. And my students tend to enjoy actually both of those sync sessions, the one with services to the differently abled and the one that Dustin leads related to security. So again, your attendance is required. I look forward to seeing you there. You will be required to be there from 8 to 8:50 Central Time, but we are probably going to have a Q&A that starts probably around 8:50 or so. So if you can stay afterwards for the optional Q&A, that would be great as well. And please also, it is not an excuse to not show up. This is graded. Your attendance is graded. Your attendance counts for 3 points. It is not an excuse to say that you got your time zone wrong. I'm going to let you all know that right now. So if you are not in Central Time, then adjust things. Eastern Time, it'll start at 9 o'clock p.m. I know that's late, but you know that's what you signed up for. And if you are in Mountain Time, 7 p.m. and West Coast Time, 6 p.m. So again, I look forward to seeing you all, and I do think that you will enjoy Dustin's presentation. All right, let us, from here, I believe that's all of the course updates that I am doing for right now. And from here, let's learn about some newspapers, y'all. Okay, so first of all, to kick this off, what we're going to do is I am going to, by the way, a little later on in this video, go to a public library website and look at a few things that are available through a local public library of mine and maybe available through your local public library, but that are not available through Mizzou. So we will do that in a bit, but the first thing we need to do is look at our Mizzou newspaper offerings, and we will look at a few of these, but we will not look at all of them. I'm probably going to just show you all the ones that I use most commonly in practice and that my colleagues, from what I hear from them at least, seem to use most commonly in practice. So let's make me small and let's put me over here. First of all, in order to get to Mizzou's newspaper focused databases, what you would do is from the library homepage, which is library.missouri.edu, you would go to looking for databases. And then you would go to databases by type. And when you go to databases by type and scroll, you will see this option for newspaper articles. And we are going to click that. And that will bring up the, this will bring up the databases that are available through Mizzou that are focused at least significantly, if not entirely, on newspaper articles. So the things that they have listed are African American Communities, Business Source Premier, Chronicling America, Factiva, Historic Missouri Newspaper Project, Illustrated Civil War Newspapers and Magazines. I've never seen that before. I don't know if I've just been overlooking it or what. Newsbank, Newspaper Source, Palmer's Index to the Times, ProQuest Historical Newspapers, the Chicago Defender, the Tribune, the NYT, St. Louis Dispatch, Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, the Times Digital Archive, and U.S. Newsstream. And we, again, are going to look at a few of these, but we're not going to look at all of them. Now, one thing that you might be noticing and thinking is a little bizarre is that, yes, we have the St. Louis newspaper offered, but we do not have the Kansas City newspaper offered. And that's a weird thing to have going on with your flagship institution. Generally, your flagship institution is going to have the newspaper offerings for most of the major cities, or all of the major cities, I should say, within the state. So when I think about major cities within this state, I'm thinking about St. Louis and Kansas City. And so you would think that the flagship university would have the Kansas City Star. And actually, for those of you who studied at UMKC, you might be aware that UMKC also does not have the Kansas City Star, and UMKC the Kansas City Star would actually be the local newspaper for Kansas City and for UMKC. And the reason for that is, without assigning blame to either side, the university and the newspaper could never come to an agreement for the price of carrying the Kansas City Star for access within the UM system, or the UM system, yes. So that is why we are without the Kansas City Star, but we are going to access that through one of the local public libraries that I'm a member of. But let's look at some of these right now. Again, we're not going to look at all of them. We're going to look at the ones that are most commonly used. If you're interested in some of the others, then you can look at those on your own time. So the first one that we're actually going to look at is going to be Business Source Premier. We are not going to look at African American communities, because even though there is a lot of newspaper content in African American communities, it's not really newspaper centric or newspaper focused. And in fact, when you go into African American communities, you will see a lot of things like oral histories and that sort of thing mixed in as well. The purpose of African American communities is to provide African American historical documents, largely primary sources, and newspaper articles, by the way, do count as primary sources in most contexts. But you also have oral histories and several other primary sources within African American communities. So it's going to be a little bit out of the scope that we are dealing with today. And because we are going to try to keep this video at an hour, which you can, again, speed me up, and you can also look at this in chunks and pick up where you left off if you don't want to watch the whole thing in one sitting. Because we are trying to limit our amount of time and we've only got about 50 minutes left, we're going to go ahead and jump right into Business Source Premier. Okay, so Business Source Premier is a very commonly used EBSCO offering for looking for business information. And so they carry a lot of publications, a lot of trade publications. They also have a lot of journals and magazines that you can access through Business Source Premier, but you do have newspaper articles that you can look at within Business Source Premier. And actually, if you want to, the good thing with this source is that if you want to limit yourself just to newspaper publications, then what you can do is, when you come into Business Source Premier, Mizzou has it defaulting into an advanced search, which is good. Basic search, you're not going to see this, but with the advanced search, you will see this. So if you go into the advanced search, what you can do is, in order to focus strictly on newspaper articles, if that's what you want to do, you can come to limit your results, and you can go to publication type right here, and then you can go to newspaper. And so let's say that I wanted to I use Revlon usually as my go-to company, because Revlon is a major employer in the small town that I'm from, or at least a neighboring small town to the small town I'm from. So I like focusing on Revlon whenever I can. I am going to, here you can use this drop-down menu in order to select Revlon, either if you want to, let's say, only limit yourself to things that mention Revlon in the abstract. You can select abstract or author supplied abstract. If you want only things that mention Revlon in the title, then you can select title here and so forth. Or you can leave it at select a field, and then if Revlon is mentioned anywhere, title, abstract, or full text, then it'll pull back. You can select company entity if you want things that are specifically focused on Revlon. But for right now, because I don't know how many returns I'm going to get anyway, I'm just going to leave it at select a field. Okay, and I've got 200 things, so yeah, definitely not a lot, but we do have, it looks like we've got a good range. We have things from 1994 to 2021, and what you can do is, if you want like the most recent stuff, then you can switch this from relevance to date newest, which is what I'm going to do here. And the most recent thing that they published that appears in this database somehow is going to be something from the Wall Street Journal here. Now, because the Wall Street Journal, here's the thing. So the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, and several other newspapers like the Washington Post, these newspapers are so important that what they do is they have themselves pretty much excluded from the full text offerings from things like Business Source Premier and the EBSCO offerings, because they know that they are such important newspapers that they can charge to be standalone databases, and so that's what they do. So if you actually want this article that appeared in the Wall Street Journal, and the way I know that it appeared in the Wall Street Journal is because I see that right here, Wall Street Journal Online edition. So if I wanted this full text, then what it would do is I would have to do the find it at MU and then go through the steps there, and I'm probably actually going to go ahead and do that. But some things that I want you all to see within this record here. First of all, you got your title there, you've got your source, your authors, and that's 3 authors is a lot for a newspaper article, but that's pretty cool. You've got a word count, that's always helpful. So we've got about 1,200 words there, and then you have NAICS codes. You all are librarians or librarians in training, and I am again trying to keep this at an hour or less. So I am not going to explain what NAICS codes are, but you can do a Google search for that, or you can take the business reference course next time it's offered, and I teach that, and I'm a former business librarian, so you would learn all about NAICS codes and other things there. But you have also author supplied keywords, so forth and so on. If you come to the right over here, there are ways to save the article, also ways, or save the, in this case, you'll be saving the record, not the article, because the article's full text is not included. But you can save the record here, you can email the record to yourself, and you can use this permalink to post the permalink and always have a way to get back to this record. Now, if you want to actually get that full text, you would do the find it at MU, and when you click that, it's going slow, so I apologize. It's never good when it goes slow and you are trying to show people things. In fact, let's go ahead and do this, open in a new window. And once you do that, oh goodness, okay. That is not now, so can I please have my article? Okay, I'm going to pause this while it does this. Okay, it finally loaded, and once it loaded, you are going to see something like this, and what you can do, and this is convoluted, so I would actually even be tempted to go into the Wall Street Journal database itself, and so that's what we're going to do next. But even though this is convoluted, what you can do is, if you want to pull up that full text, you can copy your article title here, and then you can go to search, and then you can plug in that article title, click search, and you're brought here, and this is the article here, this second one. And from there, you will see your full text. So that is what you would do if you're doing this through Factiva. And so I'll just say a few things about Factiva. Well, actually, no, I'll hold off on saying a few things about Factiva. Let's go ahead, and I'm also going to show you all how to just pull this up within the Wall Street Journal database. In one moment. Okay, and the search process, by the way, is never as straightforward as some of these tutorials make it look. So when you are actually working with me, you will see all of the bumps in the road that come with the search process. So I am going to, in order to access the Wall Street Journal in the present, we are actually going to, I don't know if you all saw that, so let me do that again. From the library homepage, we're going to go to look for a specific journal. Then we are going to type in the journal name, which is Wall Street Journal. Okay. And then we are going to click search. And this will get us to our recent Wall Street Journal offerings. So, I need to take back what I said about Wall Street Journal as a standalone. Yes, typically within the definitely their archives are standalone, and you saw that with you saw that when we went to the newspaper page, and you'll see that with public libraries a lot. But what's going on with Mizzou is that the Wall Street Journal actually is part of ABI Inform, the present articles at least, and ProQuest Newsstand. So we can pick one of these. I'll actually go with ABI Inform here. Click that. Okay. And then, so you've got Wall Street Journal, and this is the landing page for Wall Street Journal. And then you can search within publication. And so if I put that same article title in here, then I can get the full text here. There we go. And so I can link to this, I can save it, email it, so forth and so on. So that is how you would access the same article through ProQuest if Factiva is sort of frustrating you. I find ProQuest and EBSCOthings a lot easier to use than the Factiva interface. A few other things that I want to just kind of look at as we're looking at Business Source Premier. Hopefully I haven't been logged out of this yet. Okay, great. So when you have company profiles, let's see if Revlon is coming up. So Revlon will come up, and you can click your company name, and then you'll be brought to a landing page for them, and you can get a market line report. But then you can also, if you're looking for these various things related to Revlon, you can pull them up or start a search, at least by going to the related information. And from there, again, we are brought back to our newspaper offerings. And then if you wanted to, like, let's say you didn't want to go through this hassle, you had a student that wanted just something that they could look at immediately, you could actually limit to full text. And then if there are newspaper articles that have the full text here, which these are older, 2016 and 2014, but they're there. And you can click, and then you can access your full text there. And this comes from Investors Business Daily. So that's the newspaper that this one is coming out of. So that's a little bit of an overview with Business Source Premier. I'm going to go back now to I am going to go back to our publication for Wall Street Journal. And so now that we're done with Business Source Premier. I know that I'm moving kind of fast here, or trying to at least, but we're done with Business Source Premier. So now we're going to look at this landing page for the Wall Street Journal within ProQuest. As you just saw, what you can do is within this date range, at least, so we're talking the past 11 years, what you can do is you can search within the publication. And some of them, I think I actually don't even know what some of this stuff is here. But what you can do, this must be okay. This is the contents within the latest issue of the Wall Street Journal. So the September the 29th issue. And what you can do, if you wanted to actually access just all the articles within any particular day within this date range, and what you can do is you can just select. So let's say we wanted April the 15th of 2014. You can put that in. You can click View Issue. And then all of the contents of that issue are going to come up right there. And you will have that full text access. So if you see one you want, you just click that full text, and there you go. Newspaper articles, as you all know, are comparatively short related to magazine and journal articles. So when you see a word count of 718, you shouldn't fear that that's not the full text. It's generally the full text, and usually all that's going on is that you have a rather short newspaper article going on there. Now, if you wanted to do your advanced search, first of all, you leave this alone, because this is the publication ID that they have associated, that ProQuest has associated with the Wall Street Journal. So you leave that alone, And then what you do is, if you're searching within the publication, you can add some key terms. Like, let's say I wanted to search for Revlon and cosmetics. And let's say that cosmetics could be anywhere, but we only wanted things that had Revlon maybe in the title. So you could do this. There's no need to limit the full text, and then also you wouldn't, newspaper articles are not peer reviewed. All right, so I would just go ahead and click search, and whatever fits this criteria, and we've got 38 things that fit that criteria, they will be listed here, and then you can access those things there. One more thing I'm going to show you with the landing page of ProQuest for Wall Street Journal here is that I am going to, for one thing, you can copy the to your clipboard. You can copy the URL to the landing page if you want to. You can also create alerts. So in order to create an alert, you are going to have to create a free profile here. But once you create a free profile, what you can do, and I'm not going to do that for the sake of time, but what you can do is you can create your alert by putting in a term that you want to have the contents pinged to you whenever that term comes. So let's say I put in Revlon, that's what I wanted my alert to be. I could create an alert, and every time Revlon appears in an article within the Wall Street Journal, I would either, depending on the settings I choose, I would either get a digest every day or every week or even every month, or I can also set it up so that as soon as that article is published, it just pings it to my inbox. But you do have to create a login for that. So that's what I'm going to show you related to the Wall Street. I'm sorry, something weird happened there. But that's what I'm going to show you related to the Wall Street Journal landing page there. And so we are going to move on to the next thing. Okay, now Chronicling America is free. So you don't actually have to have library membership or anything like that in order to access Chronicling America. And Chronicling America is actually run by the Library of Congress. So basically these are digitized historical newspapers. I think the coverage stops at 1963. You see that there, but it goes all the way back to 1777. For some newspapers, and apparently some things might even go back to 1690. I don't actually know the minutiae of that because I have never actually had to deal with something going back that far. But I'm going to just do a very simple search right now. The simple search that I'm going to do is going to be kind of self-indulgent. So I'm going to my home state of North Carolina. I am going to select them as a state versus selecting a newspaper. I am actually going to leave in that entire custom range. And what I am going to do is I am going to just search for my last name. The last name Austin is very common in North Carolina, and there are reasons for that. But having said that, I'm going to see just what pops up. We're going to click search, see what happens with my name. And as you can see, there is a whole lot going on there, over 10,000 results. We are just going to go ahead and pick one. And in fact, this is a newspaper that I used to report for that is near my hometown, which is, my hometown is Soul City, North Carolina. And so Henderson, North Carolina is the closest daily, has the closest daily newspaper, and that's going to be the Henderson Daily Dispatch, which I used to report for. And the Austin name is very common there in the Henderson, Vance County area. So as you can see, this is what it was pulling up: funeral help for Edward Austin Jr. And what you can do is you can click on this plus button in order to zoom in, and there you go, and then you can read that there. And then whatever other things you might need to do as far as downloading the text or the PDF, you will see those options there. And you can keep zooming in. That's another great thing about this. So you won't, as you can see, you don't necessarily have readily accessible the text. You might be able to get it here. But what you can do is you can go ahead and zoom in and make your PDF or screenshot this or whatever the case may be in order to save that information. So that's Chronicling America. That's all we're going to do in that database right now if you want to. But if people need historical newspaper articles, this is a great place to go, especially if they need things from the 1800s or early 1900s. So make sure you keep this one in your toolbox. The Library of Congress has done a great job with making these things accessible. And we are going to go back to Mizzou's to Mizzou's library. Okay, so we're going to go back now into Factiva very quickly, and Factiva, again, I don't really like the interface to this. There are a lot of neat things that you can do with it, but it is also not really the most user-friendly database interface, and so a lot of times, especially when dealing with undergraduates, usually their information needs can be fulfilled through one of the other newspaper databases, so I don't use Factiva too terribly much, but it is, the basic search is pretty easy. So when you go into Factiva, this is going to be what your homepage looks like. And let's say that I wanted to do something within the last 5 years. I'm going to leave the duplicates at identical. And then there are other things that you can toggle here, including all sources, authors, companies, blah, 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 blah. Industries. So this is something that you would use a lot of times, and in fact Dow Jones probably was a giveaway, but this is also another one that you tend to use for your business and industry sort of research. And what Factiva allows you to do is it does allow you to really, because of all the functions it has, it does allow you to really narrow and exclude what you want within your returns. So you see these checkboxes here, and these can affect your search source name and alias only, exclude discontinued sources. So if you want sources like publications that are no longer being produced, then you would not exclude those discontinued sources and you would uncheck that, but it's going to default into having that checked. Now, another thing that you can do, so when you see these various options here, you can click on that plus sign box in order to expand and get a bit of a rundown of what you're being offered. And so, for instance, if you were trying to, for whatever reason, just if you were trying to, let's say, exclude the Portuguese language materials, you could click this, and then you'll see that this will come up as an exclusion, and then you can hover onto these other various icons to see what they will do. And so let's say that, for instance, for all industries, let's say that I wanted to focus on, let's say I'm focusing on consumer goods. When I clicked on consumer goods, then we get that little, we get a little notice up here, and that's an indication that the consumer goods information is being put to the top. And let's say that I wanted to focus on clothing and textiles. So I do that, and then I get that description there. And so let's say after I put all those things in, then I come back up here and I decide to do my search again on Revlon. So I can do that and then click search. Ah, Lord. And see, this is what I'm talking about with this. Okay. Again, it's not straightforward, and I don't use this often, so that's why I'm kind of stumbling with it. Okay, here we go. So Revlon Incorporated, I get that up there, and then I've got that code up there. I apologize for that. Sorry if it confused you. Click search now. Okay. See, this is why I don't like using this. Okay. Do I need to put an and there? I'm sorry, y'all. It's been a while since I used this one. Okay. Thank you. All right, so now we've got this, and now our returns come back. So it looks like we've got 133 results, and then here to the left we get breakdowns. So we get breakdowns by date, breakdowns by company of focus. So Revlon is mentioned 124 times, but then there are some other clothing and textile businesses that have that end up, like, let's say Estee Lauder is mentioned 4 times. I think if I click this, it'll give me, yeah, those 4. Okay, and so that is how Factiva works. So Factiva, again, this is one where if you really want to master it, you'll probably have to, for one thing, look at it more than one time. So like even after you've gotten to the point where you've mastered Factiva, you probably will need to get in there and do refreshers. It's not like the EBSCO and ProQuest offerings that you can just pick right up from there. As you saw, Dr. J has had a few issues with it. Got it cleaned up, but as you can see, there are some nuances to this one. It doesn't search quite the same or quite as easily as many of the other databases. Now let's, and that's all I'm going to do for Factiva right now. Let's get into another. Okay, so really quick, I am going to just go into Newsbank, and if you want to kind of a description of what Newsbank has going on there, you can read that there. I'm going to go into Newsbank very quickly. I'm not actually going to execute a search in here. I'm just going to show you what is included within Mizzou's Newsbank. And I would recommend, if you think you're going to be using Newsbank a lot, to go ahead and create and register a personal account there. But this is another great place to go if you are looking for historical newspaper content. You've got things from America here. And actually, when it comes to African newspapers, if somebody comes to you needing help with looking for articles within African newspapers, this is where you probably want to go. Your World Newspaper Archives and the African newspaper option there. So just be aware of that. And let's go to Newspaper Source very quick. So I believe this is it's one of our EBSCO holdings. And so EBSCO things, those of you who are familiar with EBSCO, you know they're very popular. Their databases are very popular and they're very easy to search, or I shouldn't say very easy to search, but comparatively, they are easy to search compared to some of the other database vendors. And in fact, even in your advanced search, you've got for one thing, more simplified amount of options here compared to what you saw in another EBSCO database, the Business Source Premier that we did earlier. And so if you want to make any of these limitations, you can do that. But I'm just going to show you. So you got your drop down items here. You can search by author, subject, whatever. And all you have to do, I'm just going to plug my last name in and see what happens as author. You click search, and then and we actually have a whole lot of results there. But yeah, you get your results here, and then from there, again, it's the same deal where if you want to limit the full text, you can do that here. And looks like everything was pretty much full text there. That didn't take us down very far. And what you can do, and by the way, this is international, so you see the Washington Post, so we've got things from America, but from the United States, but you also see the Australian, and what is that? I'm just curious as to where this is. By the way, if you ever want to know more about a source, then what you can do is click on the record in EBSCO. You can click on the record, and then where it says source, you can actually click on the name of the source, and you can find out things, including where the source is based a lot of times, although that does not seem to be the case with this one. I've never heard of that thing. So I would have to Google this one. But and now I'm just curious. So if you don't have the source information there, and you have the same, by the way, search within this publication option that you had with the ProQuest stuff. So this source, this is another thing in Australia. Okay, I was like, what is that? So, newspaper source is very easy to search, but it does have a lot of newspaper article content in it. So this is another one that you're going to want to keep in your toolbox. That one is very easy to search, so I'm not going to do anything else in newspaper source right now. We are going to get into our ProQuest offerings here. And so with our ProQuest offerings, all of these pretty much work the same. So ProQuest historical newspapers, and then all these things that break down, including the archives for the New York Times and the St. Louis Dispatch and the Wall Street Journal. All of these search pretty much the same. So I'm only going to look at one of them for right now. And you will see, again, you'll see your date ranges here. And if you need something outside of that date range, that's when you would go back to that Journal Finder feature that I used earlier for the Wall Street Journal. And you would use that in order to actually find something that's more recent, because again, historical is in the name. So if you need something that's recent, this is not where you're going to want to go. But if you're looking for your backdraft information, then this is where you may want to go. Let's take a look at the Times. There it is. So you land here, historical newspapers, the New York Times, and then all of this is information that you can throw in there. Okay. Oh, all right. I was like, these can't be required fields, and they're not. So the asterisk explains what's going on there. Search fields with an asterisk are from the New York Times Index, which includes articles from 1851 to 1993. So what you can do, again, you can use your limiting options here and decide what you're wanting to do. So again, if I wanted to go with Revlon, I could just do company, put that in. And I'm not going to do any date ranges. I'm just going to see what they have. Like, I'm pretending that I'm doing a history on Revlon. And there you go. So we have 252 results. We really get a whole lot of results in this 1980 to 1989 era right there. And what you can do, like if you wanted to limit to that time, then clicking that bar will apply that filter, and then you'll have 104 results. And again, you can click in and get your full text there. There it is. This is full text PDF. Sometimes you might not have the option of doing the HTML full text within the historical newspaper offering. So also be aware of that, because this can be difficult if you're trying to do something like you're not going to be able to highlight this text in a lot of cases and things of that nature. And then you've got your standard options here as far as you can print, email it to yourself, save it, download it as a PDF, whatever the case may be. And like I said, all the historical databases kind of search, the historical newspaper offerings through ProQuest kind of search this exact same way. All right. We are running short. We've got about 18 minutes left. Do I want to get into Newsstand? Not really, because this one kind of searches the same as well. So what I'm going to do at this point is show you one more. Okay, so I am at the homepage, well, not homepage, but I am on the Browse Subjects page for Mid-Continent Public Library, which this is one of the local Kansas City metro area library systems. It's a very large system, and again, our guest speaker next week will be from, he works for Mid-Continent Public. Newspapers here, view resources, and so we have these various things, and I am only going to look at one of them, but they are all pretty neat. So again, as I mentioned earlier with the Kansas City Star, if you need the Kansas City Star, you're probably not going to have much luck using any of the databases. You're not going to have much luck using any of the academic libraries here in the state of Missouri, or at least within the UM system. But you are going to have some luck with the Kansas City Star if you are looking at public libraries. And you see there's several other offerings that they have: Access Newspaper Archive. The America's Genealogy Bank, that's going to be very useful for those of you who are trying to do genealogy work, as well as the obituaries and death notices one. That's also very useful if you are trying to do genealogy work. I don't do genealogy work, but the Midwest Genealogy Center, I actually live right up the street from that in Independence. So If you need help with genealogy, then I would say that what you probably want to do is see if you can get in contact with the Midwest Genealogy Center as a place to start. The Chicago Tribune and all these various things, the Confederate newspapers, you have all of these options. And so, and every public library is going to have different offerings. So I'm just showing you what's available through Mid-Continent, but if you are a member of St. Louis County or, you know, Daniel Boone or whatever the case may be, then you will need to contact your library and see what their offerings are. The one that I am actually going to go into with this will be World Access News, and I'm going to show you, I'm actually going to indulge myself here and show you probably one of the articles that I wrote, but I am in the process going to show you how this searches. So if you have Access World News, and this is a popular public library database, then you can go in there, click Access World News. Oh, hold on, let me grab that. Okay, so once you're actually in Access World News, this is what you're going to be looking at. And what I like to do, there are a lot of things you can do with Access World News. It's actually a pretty fun one to search. And you can, for one thing, search by suggested topics, including social issues, of course. So that's good for your, if you're in an academic library, that's pretty good for your, like freshman comp classes when they have to do position papers and that sort of thing. But you've got sports and leisure and health and diversity and all these things. So you can search by topic. There are quick links and hot topics you can go to. You can link out to depth notices and things of that nature. So you have all those on the right. But what I like to do with Access World News is this is very useful if you are either doing date searches or map searches for specific geographies. And Access World News actually has a lot more of your small town newspaper offerings than what you're going to find in a lot of other places. So you can actually scroll down to the map, and this is where I'm going to indulge on myself a little bit. So North Carolina, and then, well, North America. I don't know why I said North Carolina. And then you can go to the United States. But as you can see, you've got international papers here too. So you've got papers from 6 of the 7 continents. You don't have any Antarctic papers that I know of, but you've got Africa and South America. And you've got things from the developing world. So developing nations within South America, Africa, Asia, you will see offerings even from those nations here. Then you can, I'm in the United States one though, so actually let me go ahead and do this over here. So I highlighted North Carolina, and when I highlighted it, it checked it, but actually what I want to do, okay, I did that kind of wrong. So what I actually wanted to do is, here's what I need to do. So if I wanted to go to the specific newspaper in my hometown or that serves my hometown, then I would go to these 112 sources here. And then I would find the one that serves my area, and you will see these listings here and the dates that this database offers, because this database does not go very far back. It's not like with the historic newspapers that you'll find from ProQuest, where they're going back to the 1800s or more. With this guy right here, you are rarely ever going to see it go back further than 1995. You got 1985 there, but 1995 is about as early is what I typically see in there. Every now and then you see things from the 80s. I don't think I've ever seen anything from the 70s or beyond here, so it might actually even be limited range to the 80s. But what is going on? Where is my paper, the Daily Dispatch? Where is it? There we go. Okay, so a lot of times you will see this as the Henderson Daily Dispatch, that they just have it as the Daily Dispatch, Henderson, North Carolina. And I used to report for this particular paper. So if I click in there, then I can either see the recent, and this is how I follow the newspaper back home, actually, because, and this is how I follow my news back home. because the Daily Dispatch now has their information behind the paywall, and I don't subscribe, which I probably should to help them out, but I do not. So what I can do is I can actually get my more recent issues just by clicking up here, and if I click that date, bada bing, then I have the full text that I can click here. So I got the features, and I can click in there. Boom. And one problem with this one though is that every now and then you see like you'll have like a article that they only have like the first half of the article. Like if the article continues on a later page, you won't get the later page information, just the just the information from the first page of the article. So that kind of is whack. But at the same time, you know, this is still one of your premier sources for oh man, I gotta go back. This is one of your premier sources for when you are trying to find a small town newspaper full text. And I'm gonna go back in there. Come on. And then what I can do, like, again, if I'm self-indulging, then what I can do is I can put in author byline and search for myself. So I can search for Austin, click search, author byline. And then it's going to bring me returns. There's 651 things that are coming back. Not all of that is going to be written by me, of course. But actually, so here's one that I wrote. And so this was one that I wrote back in 2009. It was about a friend of mine who actually recorded a rap song, and the rap song was featured on a BET movie. So we did a story about that. So we had that there, and as you can see, we have the entire full text here. If you see that send comments to blah blah blah, then you know that you've got the entirety. Okay, so but you may not have the images. A lot of times you won't have images associated with articles unless you get the PDF version, but a lot of times that's not going to come from your HTML. Okay, I reached my goal of trying to keep this at an hour, so we are going to go ahead and terminate this right now. Thank you so much for listening. I am Dr. J's Peace and Grace. There will not be a check-in video next week because I do not do check-in videos on weeks that we have synced sessions. So you'll see another check-in video in 2 weeks. Until then, be safe. Love you guys. I'm Dr. Jace. And if you are not vaccinated, please continue to quarantine in place. I am out.